And welcome to Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven, Season 2, Episode 4, Take 2, shall we say. We did originally air this episode at our normal scheduled 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Thursday night. Unfortunately, for some reason, there was some sort of recording error or something in the first 25 minutes of the video was missing, so I decided I'd have to re-record and do another live airing of the show. So for those of you who watched the first version, thank you for being there. And for those of you who are seeing the first time, welcome. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button at the bottom right corner of our area there on your YouTube page. And we will do a reviews centric episode this week, and we'll talk about 12 or 13 different books, and we'll be talking about answering questions and some other stuff. Review some online comic funding campaigns as well. So let's get straight to it with our first note of information, and that is, as always, our notice in accordance with the new COPPA regulations. This episode of Quoth the Raven is intended for ages 16 and up. While some of the content we will feature is kid-friendly, quote, so to speak, the context of the episode is to address and educate older teens and adults to inform them of said content for them to research as consumers in service of their youth. In other words, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, teachers, librarians, etc. There is the possibility of adult language, either spoken or visually represented on the episode at all, as well. Rated TV 16 and up. Now let's get to our questions. And our first question of the night was anonymous. And he says, "Hey, BR, not to sound like a smartass, but did you notice that's 2020 and not 2019? What he means by that is for the last few episodes, I forgot to correct in our closing credits, change it over from 2019 to 2020. That's all it is. And yes, I did not notice, and thank you for pointing it out to me, Anonymous. And I don't mind looking a little bit foolish on that because, hey, it was silly of me and I should have done better. But that has been corrected for this episode and for future reference. So thank you for pointing it out. Our next question. Is from Mark. And he asks, are you going to do any reviews of comics from places like Amazon.com, Lulu.com, or AnyPlanet.com on your show? In the future, yes. I don't currently have anything from those particular groups that I can share with the audience, but that is my intent. I'm absolutely very much a proponent of promoting and supporting those venues and the properties that you can find there. So as soon as I get some content that's sourced through those venues, I will certainly bring them up and review them here on the show. Thank you for your question, and thank you for bringing it up, Mark. Our next question is from Stephen A. It's a similar question to Mark's, and he asks, are you going to cover some online comics or web comics on the show, or are you just interested in print comics? As with Mark, I'm a little bit behind on my web comics. I'm not ready to start doing that, but in a future episode, definitely I will do probably a whole episode centric around that kind of material. So just be patient with me, is all I can say, Stephen. But thank you again for asking. Obviously, we're talking about comics. We should be promoting everything that we can from every facet that we can. And if you are a creator who does a web comic and you want me to check it out, just send me a link to the site, to the email address that you see at the bottom of the screen. Lewis Bright Raven, Quoth the Raven, LBR72@gmail.com. And let me know where it is, and I'll see what I can do to check it out. And if I like it, I'll mention it on the air. Okay? Our next question is from Mr. Retailer Man. That I call him Mr. Retailer Man because it's a retailer who, for whatever reasons, I guess I just didn't want to call him out. He did give me permission to use his name, but I don't want to start a pithy war between people. So his question was, what would you do if you ran your own comic shop? And that's not a question I can give you a full, complete answer right here and now. But what I basically would do, depending on where I was located and the size of my store, most comic shops tend to order the independents and anything that's not Marvel, DC, for pulls only, and then a little bit for the shelves. I would do exactly the opposite. I would do pulls and shelves only, like 5 copies for the shelf of the Marvel and DC stuff max, and everything else pulls, and I would be promoting everybody else's stuff. I would exact turnaround of what most comic shops do in that respect. Depending on where I'm at, what my layout is. The front of the store would be kid-centric, younger reader-centric, the medium for teens, and then the adult content. In the back of the store, I would have enough employees to basically service each area and specialize in each area so that the things can be marketed to the appropriate people. I would spend a lot of time marketing outside of the comic shop in my local communities to other businesses, such as restaurants, barbershops, daycare centers, schools, libraries, etc., to promote the medium of comics in the general community. I've talked about that a lot in different periods of time and different episodes in the past, so I don't need to really go over that too much, I hope. But I would do that. And again, I would heavily be marketing everything that isn't the Marvel DC stuff, pretty much. That doesn't mean I wouldn't carry Marvel or DC and that I wouldn't market it at all. It just means it would not be my predominant, my featured stuff per se. My feeling is, and my philosophy is, to build general audience interest in our medium, you have to show them what the comics medium has to offer that you can't get anywhere else. And I can get Marvel and DC on TV and television now, so I'd rather focus on the stuff that they can't get anywhere else in that respect. Okay? Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of thing I would do if I did decide to run my own comic shop. And I probably wouldn't, mostly due to the diamond monopoly. If we ever got back to proper distribution channels where we had choice besides diamond and could get everything that you wanted, then I probably would open a store, but not under the diamond monopoly rules. Mm-hmm. I do sympathize and I do feel for you guys out there who are trying to work under that system. I know it's not easy. I do get frustrated with some of you sometimes when I see an attitude expressed that suggests that you're not interested in promoting the rest of the medium. And when I go into your stores and I see nothing in your store that really promotes the indie scene that much, and when I walk into a store and the first thing you want to hawk at me is Marvel and DC's newest event or crossover or whatever, that bothers me. So, that's what grates on me. Okay. So it's not that I would do a better job running a store than you or anything like that. It's just, different philosophies of how we would do things. That's all. Next question is from Anonymous. And the question is, if you could get Dan DiDio or CB Cebulski as a guest on your show, would you? I mean, it seems to me you might just, yeah. It seems to this person that I might, just so that I could ridicule them in public. No, I would not do that to them. If I were to have them as a guest on the show, there is a journalistic integrity. There's personal integrity that you have to consider. You don't invite someone to trash them. You invite them to discuss whatever you're going to discuss as responsible, respectable human beings for one another. And so, no, I would not just invite them on just to trash talk them or to put them down. That being said, I haven't met Dan or CB in person before. I haven't really talked to them. If they were going to become a guest on the show, I would have to, one of us would have to reach out to the other and communicate privately and see if we were enough on the same page to do a proper discussion. And that doesn't mean other people wouldn't be able to come in and ask questions and ask hard questions. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to ask them hard questions and be a little bit hard-nosed in what I ask. But I guess what I'm saying is there's different aspects of this business. And if there's something I don't see that they see or vice versa, I would want whatever conversation we're having online for that to be recognized and acknowledged. And you can't do that if you're going in there with the intent to dismiss someone or, undermine their credibility or whatever. So that's not. If I was going to invite them on the show, it would be a different approach. Certainly, the same approach that I try to give all my guests. If you've watched my show, I try to be very positive and let everybody know what they've done and give a review of what they've done and talk about what they've done and what their thought processes were behind those projects. So that's probably how I would try to treat them as well. Okay. Mm-hmm. Our next question. Mm-hmm. Is another one from another anonymous. And it's, what's your favorite genre of comic? Superhero, science fiction, horror, fantasy, slice of life, what have you. I don't really have a favorite genre. I'm of the philosophy that there's room for everything, and we should have everything in the show or in the stores. I know I do a lot of science fiction comics when I do my reviews. I guess I do tend to favor them to a degree, but I don't deliberately just seek out science fiction. It just so happens that there's not very many other books in like superhero fiction. A lot of the mainstream superhero stuff doesn't appeal to me right now. If things were to change and had the right creative teams on the right books, right characters, I'd buy more superheroes. I don't know. But I like fantasy comics. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I like a lot of different things. So, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the show a little bit later. So to demonstrate what I mean by that. So, I don't really have a favored genre per se. Next question is, it stemmed from an article in sci-fi.com and then a bunch of Facebook posts I saw. So I see a bunch of Facebookers. And it's basically, why aren't comics sold in movie theaters? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. But I'm going to basically kind of give you the answers. I've talked about this before, I believe, on this show in the past, but I'll address it again because apparently people either didn't notice it or they weren't paying attention when I mentioned it on my Facebook page or whatever. These answers are not just my answers. This comes from David Allier, who owned and ran Comics North, originally Taurus Comics, but he ran it for 27 years up in Sheboygan, Michigan. He's also the co-manager of the Kingston movie theater in Sheboygan, Michigan. And his store, his comic shop, was directly across the street from the movie theater. Okay. And so he ran that comic shop for 27 years until it went out of business because the restaurant next door caught on fire, and the damage done to the store trying to put out that fire was significant enough that it ruined the business. And he's been doing the movie theater at least 17 years, probably closer to 20 if memory serves me. But this is what he had to say. And I when I wrote this stuff originally, I was a little bit perturbed, let's just say, because I get annoyed at hearing this question all the time. I get it asked all the time, but we'll talk about it. And it won't be just my thoughts and Dave's thoughts. It'll be someone else as well shortly involving here. First off, the distribution doesn't work. For those of you who don't understand the film distribution side of things, many theaters, particularly non-chain theaters in smaller populated America, like where David Ellier lives up in Sheboygan, Michigan, they don't even know whether or not they're going to get a particular movie until 3 to 10 days before the film is released. Now, as most all of you comic fans and professionals know perfectly well, comics are distributed by Diamond, who have a final cutoff order date usually 5 weeks out before the comic comes out. So I have to ask you, who in their right mind is going to order hundreds to thousands of copies of a comic book to sell in conjunction with a movie when they don't even know whether or not the movie's coming to their area? That's a problem. And that's one of the biggest problems and one of the biggest reasons why it's just not practical. Okay. It sounds like a great idea until you think about the practicality of the distribution structure. And it's not just Dave. I'm going to post a quote here from John Norris. For those of you who know John, he's a regular guest on in our chat. He's also my music producer on my show, does our opening theme. This is what he had some experience in working in movie theaters too. And this is what he has to say. And this is from John Norris, actually, not from me. I worked in a movie theater for 6 years doing everything except projectionist. We would find out if we were getting a film the week that film came out. If a new film was coming out on Friday, we'd know on Monday. So in other words, 4 days ahead of time. Pretty much like what David said, 3 to 10 days. You might know. You can't order and prepare to have a comic to sell under those conditions, okay? So there's that problem. Another problem is there's no one to sell the product. As I say there, hello, this is a movie theater, not a fucking comic store. Not only do the employees of the theater not know anything about the property or what story content is appropriate for which ages, but they're not comics people and they do not care. So now what are you going to do? Are you going to have the comic shop workers work there part-time? Well, if you're going to do that, who's paying for it? The comic shop owner or a theater? It's one thing. It's very common these days where a comic book store will do a one-night event for opening night for a movie theater with a local movie theater, and they're there for 2 to 4 hours, say. That's one thing. But to do it for the whole run of while a movie is in the theater, which is what you need to do to get it to sell any considerable amount of titles, copies of issues, is not practical. Okay? Like I said, the people that work there don't necessarily know comics. They don't know whether a story would be appropriate for a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old or what. So there's that problem. And also, where are they going to put the books? Where are they going to store the books in the movie theater if they do? A lot of movie theaters don't have the space for it, okay? And even if they did, would it be kept safe in shall we say, mint condition? Probably not. So that's two reasons why it's not practical. Number three is what I call a disaster waiting to happen. When you go to the movie theater, many of us are going to go to the concession stand and buy food and drink. Even those of us who don't are susceptible to inevitable accidents that can and do occur in the dark where stuff gets spilled all over your nice, shiny comic book. Now, what do you think theater's going to do? Just give you a replacement copy? Not going to happen. Even if stuff doesn't get spilled, now your hands are all greasy and wet from buttered popcorn, from sweaty soda cups. You don't want to handle your new comic with your hands in that condition. I know I wouldn't. So next thing you're going to say is, well, I'll just wait for the movie after the movie to get your copy. Well, hold on a minute. You just sat in a theater for 1.5 to 3 hours watching a movie. What you're probably going to do is you're probably going to go head to the bathroom first, where there's a pileup waiting for their turn as well. Now, after you've waited another 5 or 20 minutes to get your turn to relieve yourself, chances are you're going to have forgotten all about the comic and just go home. Okay? So there's that situation. But let's just say, for sake of argument, that no, I want that comic. I saw it before I went in the theater. I want to get it. I'm going to remember. You remember. You go to the bathroom. You wash your hands. Everything's fine. Now let's talk about the economic realities of it. The product's cost derivative. As you all know, comics today are in the $3.99 to $4.99 per issue range right now. Now, let's just say, for sake of argument, that I'm a husband and father of 2, and the kids want to go see a comic book movie. Let's say I take the whole family. Now, that's 2 adult tickets at $10 to $12 each, and 2 tickets for my kids, which could range anywhere from $5 to $12 for them, depending on their ages. So just to get in the door, I've already spent somewhere between $30 and $50. Now we add in the cost of any concessions, food and drink that I'm probably going to have to spend. Now I've spent around $75. Now, all you comic book dorks out there, David Campini, Derek Donovan, people who are in the business and know better than to ask this question and push this philosophy, what makes any of you think that a normal person is going to plunk down yet another $5 for a comics that don't even tell a complete story, especially after they just spent that kind of money in the store or in the theater already? They're not going to do it, guys. They're just not going to do it. And this is not just my opinion. This is, again, I'm going to copy and paste something John Norris wrote. This is about his experience working 6 years in the movie theaters. Occasionally, we'd sell genre-themed candies or popcorn buckets at the concession stand, but the only 2 times we sold special tie-in merchandise were for Disney's Lion King and Pocahontas in the 90s. I'm going to continue to post this here. And again, this is still John Norris speaking, not me. It didn't sell very well, meaning the merchandise for Lion King and Pocahontas, because A, no one knew about it in advance. B, it was Disney merchandise, which isn't exactly cheap. And C, after people paid our all too high to them ticket and concession prices, they weren't willing to spend the extra money or able, as we only took cash at the time. Now, of course, today you could do credit cards, and most people do slap stuff on their credit card or bank card or whatever. That this is true enough, but compared to when that was, but the fact is, it's still the same mentality. I've already spent that money. Okay. And that, now you talk about when he was working in the movie theater, when Lion King first came out, Pocahontas came out, we're talking about in the 90s, we're talking 20, almost 25 years ago. It's even more expensive now. So imagine what the general population's attitude is going to be towards $5 a book. It's not going to be very good. And that's what people need to understand. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do it. What it means is if you're going to do it, you're going to have to change the format of the book and you have to change price points. You're going to have to do complete stories that are self-contained with no further commitment to buying anything else. And they need to be in the $1 to $2 category, the way comics used to be. And it's not like comics can't be that way now. Alterna Comics does $150 newsprint comics in the direct market right now. So there's really no reason not to do it that way. But when people are talking about wanting this to be done in comics in theaters, they're not talking about the cheap $150. They want that high-priced $5, $10, $15 trade or whatever in there. And that's just not viable. It's just not practical, folks. And we need to stop the nonsense. If you want to get people in the general communities to embrace your comics medium again, after they've seen movies, you got to go where they go. And where they go, like I said, barbershop, beauty salon, restaurants, and I'm not talking about the chain restaurants like McDonald's or Burger King, because those people have their deals with the big companies and they get their toy meal. What you need to do is go to the small, independent, family-owned restaurants and get them to carry comics so that parents can take their kid to a normal sit-down restaurant, what they would like to do instead of always going and getting fast food, and they can get the comic with their kid meal there. Okay. And I'm not going to go into all of that. I've talked about that at length in the past, but that would be a better alternative than trying to put everything in a movie theater, in my opinion. Let's see what else we got here. The other thing is, is normal people aren't interested in comics. Now, what I mean by that is most normal people don't want to be caught up in the collector mentality of the thing where you got to go week after week, month after month, get every single issue of a comic book, which we have predicated the last 35 to 40 years of comics on that mentality. That's why we keep losing readership, because we keep pushing that mentality. So even if comics were affordable at $1 a book, $1.50 a book, people don't want to have to go over and over and over to get the next installment. Okay. So we need to change how we're going to do that if we're going to do that. And put books that are self-contained stories, whether they're short stories, whether they're graphic novels, what have you. And that's one of the reasons why you keep hearing rumors and people talking that are up the ups in the business, how, well, we're going to go straight to the trade. We're going to go straight to the trade. Well, that's great, but straight to the trade is still a $9 to $20 book. And that's not an impulse purchase. An impulse purchase is under $3. And that's what format are you going to give us? What story are you going to give us? It's under $3 with no further commitment to buy. That's where the industry needs to be figuring out. And we haven't done that. And I don't know why we haven't. That's a discussion for another day. Okay. Mm-hmm. But that is our situation. We have to put out self-contained books, and we have to do something that's more viable, even if it's just, I mean, we do 25-cent books, not 25 cents book, but we do these one-shot books for Halloween and free comic book day. If we did that format and charged like a quarter a book for the theaters to carry the stuff or something, maybe it would work. I don't know. But you'd have to market it, and then to do it every single time you have a comic book movie, and try and get it coordinated and distributed to every theater nationally, or not every theater, but every theater that's carrying that particular film. And like I said, they don't usually know until 3 to 10 days in advance. It's just the logistics are going to be very problematic, even if you do it right in the format. So again, I don't see where it's working, and I think people need to stop trying to pursue that avenue. So that's the end of questions this week. If you have questions, you can email them to quoththeravenlbr72@gmail.com. Subject, QTR questions. Please indicate whether or not you want your name and locale read on air. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the not new, but some of the online comic book, Kickstarter Indiegogo campaigns. And we're going to start with Indiegogo campaign. It's in demand. It's called Gunship Thunder Punch. It's the new graphic novel by Transformers and G.I. Joe artist Brian Scherer. This book has already been fulfilled as far as finances. It's past their date. As of the 30th, which I think was yesterday, but it might also be today. It's either yesterday or today. You could still order books to get through them. So let's go ahead and look at that real quick. That's the cover. And what it's about is Martians have kidnapped the lead character, Nova Marcos' son. Her only chance to save her son lies within an abandoned gunship and an inmate with a life sentence who commanded that ship decades before. But this gunship has a secret. It's alive. After spending 30 years abandoned in a junkyard, their self-aware transforming gunship might have some trust issues. The book is a 64-page minimum. There might be more pages, but he originally offered it as a 64-page book. Perfect bound graphic novel in full color with letters by Eric Weathers. And I guess Brian does everything else, writing and all the art. And there's some of the artwork for it, for the interior. Like I said, this book was in demand. I don't know if you can get it anymore. Like I said, either yesterday or today will be the last day you could order books and get them shipped to you. I did post a link to that in our description, so make sure you go visit that if you are interested. And that is, like I said, this is the last day, I think. But I meant to put it on last week and I forgot, so I apologize for that. So that is Gunship Thunder Punch. If you're a Transformers fan or those kind of, super robot, kaiju monsters type stuff, that might be up your alley. I don't know what you can actually order the book for. I think the price you can order it is just to get the book. You can get a digital comic, I think, at $10, and the signed comic, which is the printed edition, would be $25, and it would ship next month in February 2020. Um, so I think that's the price for them, if I remember correctly, based on what I'm seeing here. Let me take a quick look here again. Yeah, the digital comic is $10, which actually would have already shipped in January, and then the physical comic, which is signed, is coming out next month in February. There's other benefits as well, like prints in an art book and stuff like that, but I don't know exactly what's available. I think you need to just go ahead and contact the gentleman and see what you think and what he has available. Would be the best bet. Our other product is, hold on a second. There we go. It's cutting is Trekker the Complete Journey, Volume 1. For those of you who don't know what Trekker is a long-time series. It started back in Dark Horse. It's created by Randall back in 1985. It's been going on ever since. This is a complete 450-page full-color edition of everything that was done that went out of print. Everything published from like 1985 to 2006, I want to say, is going to be collected in this hardcover 450-page version. And instead of me talking, I'm going to go ahead and let Ron say everything.
I'm Randall. Thanks for checking out this latest Kickstarter for my science fiction series, Trekker, featuring bounty hunter Mercy St. Clair. Depending on how you count it, this is either the fourth or the first Trekker Kickstarter. The fourth because I've already done 3 very successful Kickstarters to bring 3 all-new, full-length Trekker graphic novels into print. I'm very proud to say that each of these campaigns funded quickly and were fulfilled right on schedule. But in another way, this is the first campaign, because this time I'm trying something completely different. You see, before those new self-published Trekker books, I had already done a lot of Trekker stories using Dark Horse Comics as my publishing partner. A whole lot of stories. But now, all those earlier tales, every one of Mercy's original cycle of stories, are out of print. This Kickstarter is going to change all that. This Kickstarter is going to gather every page of those stories, from Mercy's very first appearance up to the last page that was originally published through Dark Horse, into a definitive, full-color hardcover, Trekker, The Complete Journey, Volume 1. Many of these stories have never appeared in color before. In fact, I have just finished adding new color to over 200 pages of black and white stories, especially for this oversized deluxe volume. If you're looking for the ultimate collection of the greatest adventures the 23rd century has to offer, here's where you take the first step. Here's where you start the journey.
And that's pretty much resolving there from Ron. Again, I'm hoping to have him on the show to talk Trekker in a future episode. There's another 2 or 3 weeks to fund that particular campaign. Let's go back and take a quick look at it. There's 20 days left to go. It has already passed in its pledge of maximum of 35,000 gold. It's over the goal. And like I said, Trekker is a really good series. It's been around since '85. I've been reading it since the mid to late '90s myself. It's about a character, like I said, Mercy St. Clair, who's a bounty hunter in the 23rd century. And you're going to see a lot of different stuff in here that you haven't seen before and everything. So, and not just a character that is attractive, but a character that, again, is got relationships with both men and women. The characters interesting in terms of the relationship she carries about, and it's not just a straight I don't want to say it's LGBTQ nonsense per se. Some people are going to complain because she does have relationships and she does have a girlfriend, but at other times she has a boyfriend. So, I mean, it's, people, I guess she's bi is what I would say, but regardless, it's not like what drives the book by any means. What drives the book is her work as a bounty hunter and the adventures, not any sexual identity. So it shouldn't be an issue. But I know for some of you comics gator hater people that just can't stand anything that's not white bread straight up, whatever, this book isn't for you. But for other people who are interested in really good science fiction, straight up type adventure comic, this is something worth your time. And we're going to take a quick look at that. And you don't need to get $95 or more like that. I think the hardcover is like $50. Okay, but again, you're talking about 470 pages in full color, to be delivered in August of this year. I think it's a pretty good value for that kind of a book. I don't know how thick that would be, but probably a good 2 or 3 inch thick book. Probably, something like that. Easily as thick as this previews catalog. Okay, it would easily be that thick. Only a hardcover, because this book has, let's see, 425 of the stuff is comics, and another 100 or so is their merchandising in this particular catalog. So, there you go, roughly about the size of this book right here, in hardcover for $50. So, it's not a bad price at all, because you got to remember I think that's including the shipping and handling stuff that he's doing. He's not charging shipping on top of it, or if he is, it's included in the price. So that's a really good deal in my opinion. And I'm someone who has most of these stories already in their original publication format as a collector, and I'm planning on getting one of these in the future. So, and supporting this project. So, can't recommend anything higher than that. So that takes care of our web comics and campaigning for this week. And so that leads us to our sponsor for the week. And ironically, since we're just talking about the movie theater situation, my sponsor this week is Scratch and Spin Music, Comics, and Movies store. They're doing an exclusive screening of the Birds of Prey movie that's coming out from DC next month. Saturday, February 8th at 8 p.m. at AMC Dutch Square Theater here in Columbia, South Carolina. They're going to have a Harley Quinn costume contest where you can win a $100 gift card. They'll have 2 cosplayers, Zoe Francis Charles, who will be playing Harley Quinn, and Lynn Powell, who will be playing Batman. They'll have a free art print, which I don't know what that's going to be, but it'll be a black and white print featuring either Harley or Harley and the Birds. I don't know who the artist is or anything like that. They will have local artists. I will not be there. I have other obligations that weekend, unfortunately, but there will be other local Columbia-based artists there. They will have comic dealers, trivia and prizes, raffle prizes, and other things going on right before the premiere of the movie. And what they're going to do is at the Dutch Theater, before you enter the theater area, they'll have this long traverse hallway where you come in from outside before you can go into the movie theater. And that's where they're probably going to have all the people, whether it's the comic book dealers or the artists or whoever they're going to have as guests for that event will be there before you ever enter into the movie theater. That way you can purchase whatever you're going to purchase and then take it back out to your car and not take it into the theater, so you don't have to worry about butter popcorn or sweaty soda pop cups. You can go ahead and take it back in your theater, which you can't do in a normal movie theater. Usually when you buy your ticket in the movie theater you're in, you can't go back out and then come back in. It's a rule, but that's why they're going to do it that way. I have done these kind of one-night events. I did the Star Wars Rise of Skywalker for Scratch and Spin last month in December. It was okay. It turned out all right. I made some money, but this is kind of like almost a mini convention type situation now. They're going to have that many more people there. We only had 3 artists at the Rise of Skywalker. I'm understanding there's going to be like 3 to 6 artists and maybe 3 or 4 vendors on top of it. For that area, it's like having a mini show. So it'll be different. If you happen to be into the thing and you're in the area, maybe you'd be interested. I can't say. But anyway, tickets are $9.99 and available only at Scratch and Spin. You call the store for more details at 803-794-8888, or you can visit them on Facebook, Scratch and Spin, or Instagram, Scratch and Spin, for more information. And that covers our sponsor for the week. And we will get into our reviews. We're going to start with Death Orb, trade paperback, $19.99, publisher Dark Horse. The writer is Ron Ferrier. The artist is Alejandro Araon. Got a new subscriber. Hello again. Mark Andrew Smith of Gladstone School for World Conquerors. I thought you'd already subscribed to the channel, but I guess you hadn't. The colorist, anyway, for Death Orb is Chris O'Halloran. The genre is post-apocalyptic SF. The trade was released in May of 2019. Its ISBN number is 978-1-50670-824-9. What it's about: Ryder, an axe-wielding biker, searches the badlands of a post-World War III America in search of his abducted wife and child, cutting a horrific path through his enemies. It's ages 16 and up. I give it 3 out of 5 stars. Basically, if you are into the Mad Max, Road Warrior, Death Race 2000 type movies, type of that kind of a storyline, you'll enjoy the comic. Otherwise, maybe not your thing. We're going to show you the artwork. And this is, again, Alejandro Araon, or Aragon. I just say Araon. I happen to like the color palette. I like how he's doing some of the shading, and then some of the color panels have the jet straight up, almost fluorescent coloring with the reds and yellows. Heightens the tension in the panel and pacing of the book. Very well done. If you like East of West from Image, this is another book that's like East of West. You might like it if you're a fan of that book in that series as well. So that would be what I would recommend for Death Orb is if you're a fan of East of West or you're a fan of those movies I mentioned earlier, that might be a book for you. Our next book is House of Whispers, Volume 1, $16.99. The publisher is DC Vertigo. The writers, technically, it's listed as Neil Gaiman and Neil Hopkinson. It's more Neil Hopkinson than Dan Waters, with Neil Gaiman kind of being an inspiration or an overseer, I guess you could say. But anyway, the artist is Dominique Domo-Stanton. The colors are by John Rausch. The genre is horror. The ISBN number is 978-1-40129-135-8. The trade collection was released July of 2019. I got them in singles, so I can't show you the trade, unfortunately. Same thing with Death Orb. I got them in singles. A lot of these books that you're going to be seeing reviews tonight of stuff I've had for a long time. I just never got around to reading. But anyway, what it's about, from her bio, Urzuli scries upon the mortal realm and sees 4 human girls open a mysterious and magical journal filled with whispers and rumors that, if they spread, could cause a pandemic unlike any the earth has seen, with the power to release Sapona, the Loa Lord of infectious disease and cousin to Urzuli, who is currently banned from the human plane. That's referring to Sapona, or another character that will be named later. Meanwhile, a mysterious infection doctors are calling Cotard's delusion spreads, trapping countless souls in the dreaming and leaving their physical bodies yearning for death. Ages 16 and up, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Part of the reason I do that is because Nalo Hopkinson is very underrated. Mark says, I thought I did too. Haha. So, okay. But anyway, as I was saying, Nalo Hopkinson is very underrated for comics. This is one of her earliest projects. I think it's like maybe her second or third comic series at the most. And she's more known as a science fiction author. But I've been wanting to get her into comics since, probably around 03 or 04. And this is like her first major project. And I've seen a lot of people trash the book and trash her, mostly the comics gators, because, oh my gosh, black woman writing comics, can't have that. Don't do that. Give the book a chance. I'm not going to promise you that it's going to be the best thing coming or going or anything like that. If you like horror comics, if you like something that's more cerebral in the type of work it is, then this might be for you. It's not a lot of action adventure type stuff. It's very, it's paced at a very leisurely rate, I guess I could say. I'm going to show you some of the art now. And this art is by, again, Dominique Domo-Stanton, with colors by John Rausch. All these characters that you see dancing in the center image are the souls that are trapped in the dreaming from the disease. Some of these other characters are the entities of the dreaming, like Urzuli, and the monster in the mirror is the character Sapona. So there's that. And then the next book is Volume 2, also $16.99. Same publisher and creative team. The ISBN number is 978-1-4012-9917-0. It's not out yet. It comes out next month, February 2020. It collects the next 5 or 6 issues. The first issue covers like the first 5 to 7 issues, and this covers, I think, through issue 12 of the book. I've been getting it in singles. The story is the pandemic is spreading, and Urzuli is calling upon all of her distant contacts to aid her in stopping Shakpana or Sopana and his infection. The souls trapped in the dreaming are restless, seeking any help they can attain to escape their pre-deceased state. Urzuli calls upon the spider god of stories, Anans, to assist her in unraveling the truth behind her own history, but can Anans be trusted with any truths that he finds? Good stuff all the way through. It's she's doing a good job. Malo is with Anaz as a spider god of stories. That's very much mythological pretense to it. Plays very well into the stuff that Neil Gaiman was doing with the Dreaming when he was doing Sandman, and I think people should give it a shot. Even if you don't want to buy it, check it out online. Check it out at a library if you can. It should be available. So give it a shout. Our next book here's a little bit more from some of the later issues of The House of Whispers. And our next book is Invisible Kingdom, Volume 1, 1999. Publishers Burger Books, Dark Horse. Writer G. Willow Wilson. Artist, colorist is Christian Ward. Editor is Karen Berger. The science fiction action adventure genre. Released in trade in October 2019. The ISBN number is 978-1-50671-227-7. And what it's about is in a different galaxy solar system, 2 women. One is a young religious acolyte. The other is a hard-bitten freighter pilot. Uncover a conspiracy between the leaders of the most dominant religion and an all-consuming megacorporation. On the run from reprisals on both sides, this unlikely pair must decide where their loyalties lie and risk plunging the world into anarchy if they reveal the truth. The rating is 4 out of 5 stars, ages 16 and up. For those of you who are the people who used to be Vertigo fans who say Vertigo sucks now, and now it's turning to Black Label, and DC ruined Vertigo, and it's SJW's ruined Vertigo, blah, blah, blah. If that's true, and Karen Berger launched Vertigo, why aren't you reading a book like this? It's what Vertigo used to be, right? It's by the person who founded Vertigo. So there you go. If you're a Vertigo fan, you should be checking this book out. But I've read the first 6 issues. I think this is the collected first 5 or 6 issues. The 9th issue just came out this week. Let's see. Here's some of the interior art by Christian Ward. I happen to like a lot of his color palette here. It's very visually not so much appealing. It's dynamic. It has a neon color glow and different things like that I think is pretty interesting to look at in that respect, and I enjoy looking at it. Story's okay. It's a little bit slow paced, but when people are writing the way they're writing comics today, a lot of the comics are slower paced than they used to be. So I'm used to that, and nothing really worth complaining about. Some more pages. This is some of the early pages. This is where the acolyte has to find her way to wherever the monk monastery is, and she has to walk blindfolded and get to there that way, and that's how she does. They get her there, and then she's entering their monastery. Our next book is The Kill Lock, number 1 and 2. The publisher is IDW. It's $3.99 each. The writer artist Livio Romandelli. Genre is science fiction. Just came out. Issue 1 was released last month, and number 2 just came out like last week, or maybe I think it was last week. What it's about is 4 robots are deserted on a planet with a kill lock program implanted in them. In other words, if one dies, the other 3 will die along with them. Now, 3 of them have done things that they feel like they deserve this fate. They're all artificial intelligent robots. One is a warrior robot who defected or otherwise disobeyed orders and didn't want to kill innocent people or whatever. So they branded him traitor or whatever and kicked him into this program. Another one is a scientific type robot who shredded a bunch of robots to figure out how they worked, and then also did it to some people or something to that effect. And another one is a freighter robot who is, I guess he gets drunk a lot, and he was drunk on a job, and he closed the hangar doors for a ship that was supposed to land, and it crashed and killed a bunch of people, and he was held negligibly responsible. So those 3 are proven that they're bad and gotta get rid of them. So they're on the kill lock. But the 4th is a new type of robot that hasn't even been completely assembled yet. So it's like an infant type almost. And the other 3 don't think it's a fair punishment for that one. It's a prototype. So they bond and try to seek a cure or means to correct or remove the program and earn their freedom for the sake of the young robot. And I think it's a pretty cool idea in some respects. It's not the first time I've seen something like this, but it is something that in this sense of with the robots. I've seen it done with people, but not with robots like this. Livio Romandelli, the artist, has done a lot of different animation, storyboarding, and other work. He's worked on Transformers in the past. And you can see some of the Transformers influence in the artwork. Here, the one in the dark with the yellow, with the glowing faceplate is the military armor robot. The guy with red and gray is the freighter robot. The one with the one purple eye, I guess you could say, and this kind of square head. He's the one that's a scientist and tears everybody up, and the little one is that one dead in the center of the page. Is that so? Anyway, so far it's been pretty good. There's the first 2 issues. It's going to be a 6-issue miniseries. I thought it was going to be shorter than that. At first, I thought it was going to be a 4-issue miniseries, and I thought it was going a little bit slow. But now that I know it's a 6-issue series, it's going at the right pace for the storytelling, and we should see more action picking up in the next issue or so, and then finding the resolution in the last 2 issues. But so far, it's been really good. The only reason I gave it a 3 out of 5, I should give it a 4 out of 5, to be honest. But I gave it a 3 out of 5 because I thought it was a 4-issue miniseries, and I thought it was a little bit slow. But if it's a 6-issue, it's right where it should be, and I'll give it a 4 instead of a 3, okay? Our next book is No One Left to Fight. Trade paperback, publisher Dark Horse, $19.99. The writer is Aubrey Sitterson, who has had some issues in the past, I guess. Some people don't like him for some reason. I forget the differences, and don't want to look him up right now. The artist is Fico Asio. The letterer is Taylor Esposito. The genre is action adventure manga homage. Is the best way I could put it. The trade release is forthcoming in March 2020. Again, I'm reading it from the mini series and singles. What it's about, for me, it's basically knockoffs of all your favorite characters from Naruto and Street Fighter and all these other manga quest type, manga comic, video game type stuff. And the lead character, Vale, who's this guy right here on the cover to the right, he doesn't know what to do. He's retired from being a hero, retired from adventuring. Him and his friends have. And so he asks his friends to go with him on one final quest back to the site of his greatest battle so he can make peace with himself. It's an okay book. I think it's more art driven than story. The story just didn't. It fell a little bit flat. That's why it's a 3-star instead of higher. I don't want to disrespect anybody on the book because it's really nice production on it. And again, when I show you the art in a minute, I think you'll see why I like the book. But it's still just like middle of the road, maybe a little bit above middle of the road, because the story is so. It's just formulaic. We've seen this before. I wish they could have done a little bit different, a little bit more with it than they did. But the art is good. And this is the artwork from Fico Asio. Very colorful palette. That's another, I wish we could show you the black and white art as well, because the colors are very powerful, but they're also a little bit overwhelming in the color palette choices. But in this story, Vale is coming to his friend's house, and this is one of their friends, but it's not the person he was expecting. He gets bear hugged and by the guy and then put down, and now the kids, the people that he was going to see, hit him, tackle him at the bottom of the second page there. There you go. As you can see, he's being tackled by the kids and their pet flying squid or octopus. And then one friend, who's the female, greets him and gives him a hug, hello. And then his other friend, who's not so much a friend as much as a companion, I guess they're kind of, they're in the same group, but they're kind of like reluctant competitors of sorts as well. So like the guy with the purple sash thought he was better or as good as or better than the lead hero in this. And that's kind of what the story is kind of about, is figuring out where everybody fits after you've done something. And I guess it's kind of a good metaphor for life in a way. What do you do after high school? Well, you go on to the next stage of your life. What do you do when you go to college and you finish college, go on to the next stage of your life? What happens when you leave a job? You're going on to the next stage of your life. It's that kind of a theme with this book, and that's fine. It's just, I guess, like I said, maybe it's a little bit too predictable for me, which is why I only gave it 3 out of 5. But still a respectable book. Our next book is Read Only Memories #1. It's $4.99 from IDW Comics. There's 2 stories in the book. The main story is by Sina Grace, and the backup story is by Grace Kelly, as far as the writing goes. The art is by Stefano Simeone and Christina Titsu. I hope I didn't just slaughter that name. The genre is science fiction, crime, romance. The first issue came out, may have come out last month, the first issue, but I don't know. I think it came out earlier this month, and then the second issue just came out this past week. I haven't had a chance to read the second issue yet, so we're only going to talk about the first one. What it's about is Lexi Rivers is a private investigator in Neo San Francisco in the year 2067. She seems to typically do cases where she investigates suspected persons of cheating on their partners, or at least that is the sort of case that she's on when we were introduced to her. On an interview with a suspect, she's interrupted and almost has her cover blown by a robot who calls her by her real name. It turns out the robot wants to hire her because its partner robot has gone missing, and it claims they are artificial intelligences who are in love with each other. Intrigued, she takes the robot's case. Rating 3 out of 5. Again, this is just the first issue. It's mostly set up. Because of that, I'm a little bit wait and see where it goes. But it's a little bit above average, so I gave it 3 out of 5. Wasn't quite sure about giving it a 4 though yet. We're going to show you some of the artwork now. Again, kind of the color palettes, blues and pinks and everything. It's rather interesting to me that this book has this. Again, I think that, like some of the other books I've reviewed, a lot of the Comicsgate hate people aren't going to like this book because almost all the characters, okay, she's investigating. She's the blonde talking to the woman here. She's investigating this person, interviewing her because her client is that person's wife. As you can see, she's a woman. So you got a lesbian couple here. Okay, that's LGBTQ. We don't like that because we're Comicsgate. And the robot is a male, and his partner's a male centric program. So again, LGBTQ. But that's not unexpected, seeing that Cena is gay himself, and that he's the guy who wrote the Gay Iceman stuff. So, oh my gosh, we'll hate him now. Yeah, no, you won't. At least not on my show. I've said this before. Iceman's been gay for a long, long time, since the 80s. It was just closeted. Look for it. It's there in the Defenders run before X Factor. So just read J.M. DeMatteis run. But I like just the color palette for Stefano's art. And here's a next set of pages. And she takes the woman's glasses. I don't know why someone would let them look at their glasses that way, but she puts spyware on the glasses to see if the woman's actually cheating on her spouse and everything. It's just, whatever. Not that big of a deal. So anyway, I enjoyed the story for what it is. It's decently written. It's just, for a first issue, it's set up all the way through, and there's not quite a payoff. And that's why it's 3 out of 5 instead of 4. Also, the backup story, I don't show the artwork for the backup story because I'm not that fond of it. I will show it when I discuss issue number 2, probably next week. Mark Andrew Smith says, this is good to see you sticking up for diversity or representation books. Always, Mark. I've never had a problem with that. For those who don't know, when I was in college decades ago, I ran a comic book group that did their own comics, and my vice president was gay, and we promoted his stuff heavily. Gay black man. And he did a comic book about a character who was, I'm sure some of you who are fans of comics remember Shadowhawk by Jim Valentino, about not a gay black man, but a black lawyer who got the AIDS virus from getting it injected to him by the mob or something. This was more realistic. this gay guy got AIDS from working at a AIDS clinic and getting accidentally exposed that way. And yeah, Mark likes the art on the Read Only Memories as well. On the lead story, I'll show you the 8-bit stuff a little bit later next week, probably when I review number 2. But yeah, I've always been supportive of minorities in comics. I don't see a reason why there shouldn't be representation in that. But the thing is, I've always felt there has been representation. It just hasn't been marketed. And now that it's getting marketed, people are having a hissy fit over the last 4 or 5 years when it's been here right along. And I just wish that more people, when we say we need more diversity, we've got diversity. It's just acknowledging the diversity that's there and giving it equal consideration for our own interests in reading and selling the material. That's all. That's what I think about that. But let's see what else we've got here. We got quite a bit to go. Yes, Reborn, Book 1, hardcover. This came from 2017. It's $24.99. The publisher is Image Comics. The writer is Mark Miller, who you guys have probably seen some of his stuff. He's done a lot of Netflix and movies. I think, I can't remember. I think he's the guy who did Hitman or Kick-Ass. That's it. Kick-Ass and Hit Girl is his. And I think Kingsman and some of the other stuff is his as well. The artists are Greg Capullo and Jonathan Glapian. The colorist is, oh gosh, I'm probably going to slaughter this name, Fico Placencia. That's the best I can come up with. If someone knows how to pronounce it better, let me know. The genre is science fiction fantasy. As I said, it was released 3 years ago. ISBN number 978-1-53430-158-0. What is it about? Well, it's about what happens when you go to die. Where do you go when you die? You don't go to heaven or hell. You go somewhere else, somewhere where you have to fight to survive, somewhere the people from the past are waiting for you, all the good and the bad. I gave it 3 out of 5 for ages 16 and up. The reason I do that is, one, I'm not a huge fan of any of the talent on this book, to be honest. And how do I explain this? I didn't even know I had the book. I was going through for this episode, I was going through titles that I hadn't read, and I happened to find it in shrink wrap in a bookshelf. I said, well, obviously I haven't read it. It's shrink wrapped. So I guess I better add it to the list. I've always, nothing wrong with Capullo or Glapian. They're good artists, nice guys. I've just never been a fan of what Greg does. I can't put my finger on it. It might have been because he was on Spawn for so long. I don't know. But I was never a fan of his stuff. But I got this somehow. I don't even know how I got this offhand, but I did. But here's some of the interior art. And what it is this old woman has had strokes and other things going on, and she dies, and she's reborn in her 25-year-old self, and that's her in the bottom right corner of the first page. And the guy behind her is her dad, who was reborn into this alternate universe or whatever. And the animal behind her on her other side is her pet dog that is now like Battle Cat from He-Man and the Masters Universe. Only it's a dog that you can ride. So it's a little bit weird there. The guy in the top left corner is her husband, only he died before she did, and he married someone else while waiting for her to die and come back to this universe. So he's married to someone else and has a family. It's confusing, but whatever. But okay. he's now held captive by the bad guy, and she has to go rescue him. And that's what she's doing in this story. One of the neighbors that she knew, who was a car mechanic or something in our world, is now a pilot mechanic, and as you can see, he's flying an elephant. There's some interesting stuff going on here visually. And on the third page, they've been captured by the bad guys, and her abilities as a fighter have just started to kick into her mind like a video game. Oh, I know how to do this now. And she says, "Are you ready to beat everybody up?" And yeah, if you are, okay, well, watch this, type thing. And that's what that page is. It's a decent enough book for what it is. It's not something I would have normally bought. Like I said, I don't know how I got this book. I think maybe I got it at a major discount store or something, maybe. I don't know. But it's not something I normally would have bought. But having read it, I can't say I was disappointed in the book. It's just average to me, though. It could be, if you're a fan of the Greg Capullo Batman stuff, or you're for the Capullo Spawn, you haven't checked this out, it's worth your time. If you're a fan of Mark Miller, it's worth your time. If not, it's middle of the road. Our next book is called Self-Made. This is the trade, $16.99. Publisher is Image Comics. The artist is Matthew Groom. The writer is Matthew Groom. The artist is Eduardo Ferragamo. The colorist is Marcelo Costa. And I mentioned the editor, Kyle Higgins, because apparently I know the name Kyle Higgins from something else. I guess he was a writer for a while, and this is his first editorial debut, and they made a big deal about it. So I go ahead and mention that here. I got it in the singles. The genre is fantasy science fiction. The ISBN number is 978-1-5343-1227-2. It was released July 24th, 2019 as a trade. And what it's about is Amala Sitlali, a female warrior in the Lost Kingdom, questions her existence and resists the expedition of the world around her, only to discover that nothing is what it seems, including herself. She is a non-player character in a computer game, just computer code, but she is much more than that, and she will prove it. I give this book 4 out of 5 stars for ages 16 and up. It's not the first time I've seen this kind of story, but it's one of the first times I've seen it in comics. It's a very common theme story in science fiction, cyberpunk stuff that's been going on for decades. So in terms of thematic structure of the story, it's not the most original story, but okay, seeing it in comics and the way it's done, it's not too bad. Here's some of the artwork for it. And this is the black girl on the left here is Amala. And she's against the plan of attack. And the other guy standing to her left says, "Well, why don't you tell them that you're against it?" And she's like, "I can't. It's not my place." But if you know this is going to fail and we're all going to die, don't you have a responsibility to us? And of course, that's just the computer programming talking. She can't resist because the computer doesn't allow her for programming. In the next page here, this is after everyone's already died. She's one of the few left surviving. She's confronted by this guy who is supposed to be the lead player character, and it's being played by the computer. The premise even sounds like the Matrix Neo is kind of an NPC at the start. Yes and no, Mark. Bear with me. I'll get into it in just a little bit. But yes, I see where you're coming from. This guy here, though, is basically a gaming tester, I guess you could say. And she goes up against him and resists him after everybody's died. And after she's resisted him, he pops out of the video game and makes a complaint to the gaming programmer. And she watched the whole thing, and she's like, this is actually really interesting. Let me take this program and figure out what's going on. And he wants the program trashed, her code trashed, and she's like, nope, that's not happening. We got to figure out what's going on here. And ultimately, the scientist and the gamer tester are fighting over the status of this program. And they take it to the head of the company, and the company guy basically sides with, guy sides with the guy, the female, screw you, type normal stuff that you see in that type of an environment. And they smash the NPC code, but she's able to save enough of it and sneak it out of the building after she's been fired from the building, fired from her job. And she sneaks out with it and basically puts it into a computer body. So she is now an AI with a body at some point. Lala is. And the adventure begins really when that happens, because now she's going to find, your creator. I'm going to find who created you guys, and get this straightened out. It doesn't work that way, of course, because, she's basically looking for God. But anyway, she leaves, and they have an adventure, and people get killed, and other people come to find out that what's going on, and that the company is hiding all of this stuff and killing people over these things. I'm not going to say who all dies and why, but ultimately she is brought forth before the public, and all the characters from the games are going to be put into bodies like hers. Which is probably where the next storyline will take place, is now what's going to happen in society when you have a bunch of computer programs that are in computer bodies that are going to be treated like citizens. So that'll be the next part of the story, which they haven't gotten to yet. But I think it's pretty interesting in that respect. The artwork by hold on a second. Yeah, I was screwed up. The artwork by Eduardo Ferragamo is really well done. A lot of the shading was done by him in the black and white, and the coloring by Marcelo was just done over the grayscale shading. And I believe that Eduardo did everything on a computer tablet, computer generated art, as opposed to traditional style in this particular series. But very well done, very well story. Again, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The artwork has a very European flair to it. That's part of why I like it. It's not like the standard mainstream stuff that you're seeing from DC, or especially DC, with all the Wildstorm, Top Cow, Aspen artists that are there. So I like that. Okay. I would definitely give it a shot when it comes out. Or actually, this did come out in July. I keep forgetting that some of the books already came out and some of them haven't with the trades. So our next one is She Could Fly, trade paperback, $19.99. Dark Horse Burger Books. We've already talked a little bit about the Burger Books brand, I believe. The writer is Christopher Cantwell. The artist is Martin Morozno. The colorist is Miroslav Merva. Editor Karen Berger. Genre is fantasy, psychological drama. The trade was released in March 2019. ISBN number 978-1-50670-949-9. And it's 4 out of 5 stars for ages 16 and up. And what it's about is a 15-year-old girl named Luna Brewster, who is suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder and other disturbing mental condition, where she keeps seeing things and just potentially a threat to herself and to others. And she gets caught up in a mystery about an unknown person that's been flying over Chicago, and that person who's doing the flying explodes in midair. Meanwhile, there are clandestine forces trying to find out who the flying woman is as well, and her involvement in the mystery could cost her and her family their lives. This is the artwork from Martin and Miroslav. On the first page, Luna is talking to her high school guidance counselor, and she's asking, well, what do you think about possibly getting your driver's license? And she's picturing in her head killing someone, running them over, getting arrested, and going to jail. That's the kind of stuff that's how this is demonstrated by the writer, Christopher Cantwell. And I'll get a little bit more into Christopher in just a minute. And then another part of the story, the guidance counselor ran over a cat at home when she was trying to get leave for work, and she described this to Luna. And now every time she sees the guidance counselor, she pictures the cat's head squished with the brain sticking out instead of the woman's head. Which I just think that's, I guess that's what happens when you have this kind of condition. I don't know, but I just thought that was really an interesting and wicked thing, because now every time she talks to this person, she sees the cat's face instead of the guidance counselor's face. At this point, though, where you see in the center page where the kids are all running away from her, is they just found out that the woman that was flying exploded. And then on the third page, it's at her house with her grandmother and her parents, and the guidance counselor's there, and then the other woman there with red hair getting her arm taped up is another person who's part of trying to find out who the woman who was flying is, and the clandestine people are out to get them, so they're going to attack the house soon. But it's a very interesting storyline, and what makes it partly interesting is because the writer, Christopher Cantwell, suffers from OCD himself. And what he's doing is actually describing stuff that he went through in high school. And he's taken the stuff that he was visualizing as a kid when he was having these difficulties before he was diagnosed and treated for some of this stuff, and then throwing in conspiracy theories and throwing in other stuff going on into this one story. And it's really a pretty wicked, wild thing that we're seeing here. And I thought that was a pretty wild way of looking at it, and way to do a comic book. And I understood why Karen Berger picked it up. The next book, of course, is the second series from that same team, She Could Fly the Lost Pilot. And this came out only last December, about a month ago. Their ISBN number is 978-150671-276-5. And again, she's trying to figure out what happened to the woman who exploded while flying over Chicago, and bring closure for herself in the memory of the fallen. But there are parties who don't want this information of who that person was to become public, and they will do anything they can to stop her. I don't have any more artwork. It's the same basic stuff. But both of them are 4 out of 5 stars. And, for fans who are fans of the Vertigo line, I know I talked a little bit about, an earlier book that was from Berger Books. If you like the Vertigo stuff, this is the kind of comics you should be reading. Instead of complaining about Black Label or what DC's doing wrong, go read this stuff instead. Okay? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Our next book is Stellar, $16.99 trade. The publisher is Image Comics. The writer was Joseph Keating. The artist was Brett Blevins. Here we are, science fiction superhero. Yes, I'm reading a superhero comic. Go figure that one out. It was released in trade a year ago, January 2019. ISBN number 978-1-5343-0870-1. What it's about is the character known as Stellar was taken as a child and transformed into the ultimate weapon, one that would end the intergalactic war. She succeeded at everything except finding peace. Reduced to working as a bounty hunter, she now scores the world she's broken, searching for redemption for what she's done. But there are other weapons loose in the galaxy and those who would do anything to exact revenge upon her for what she did. The rating is 4 out of 5 stars for ages 16 and up. The main reason I got this book was for Brett Blevins. For those of you who don't know the name Brett Blevins, he's a very popular artist in the 1980s. He worked on a series called The Boz Chronicles with David Michelinie, writer David Michelinie. And he also did a good run with Louise Simonson on New Mutants for Marvel. Boz Chronicles also came out from Marvel as part of their Epic line originally. So that's the main reason I got this particular series. I got it in singles, and unfortunately, as I was waiting for it to get concluded, it got buried underneath a pile of other books, and I didn't realize I hadn't gotten to it. So that's why it's taken so long for me to mention this series. But here's some of the artwork by Brett. I think it's very clean, very just absolutely gorgeous stuff. She's escorting a bounty capture across the Badlands of a planet, looking at, and it's basically all the stuff that she may have herself done to some of these things with her powers. And she's, remembering some of the stuff that she's seen, people she's fought and everything in the second page there. And then she sees something crash land into this building or into this monster type thing here. On the top left panel. And if you can see the guy dangling, that's the guy. She just left him dangling from the guy's head over a lava pit while she's searching for what's going on for survivors or whatever. And then she finds out that there's 3 powered beings like herself that are wanting to fight. And she's like, hey, you run and tell everybody else to get the heck out of here because we're going to have a major problem here. So, again, love the artwork. Just really beautiful colors, beautiful production on this thing. Really enjoyable book. So I go ahead and give that one a 4 out of 5. Our next book is Sword of Ages, Volume 1, trade paperback. Publisher is IDW Comics. It's $24.99. The writer-artist is Gabriel Rodriguez, best known probably for his work on Lock and Key, which has just been, I guess there's going to be a Netflix series based on that comic that Gabriel drew for Joe Hill. And it's science fantasy. And ISBN number is 978-1-6480-5267-7. What it's about: Avalon is the first warrior to wield the most famous and powerful weapon of all time, also known as the Power Sword. The young champion leads a battle against an alien invasion of her homeworld. The lines between science and magic might blur, but the line between heroes and villains and the legend of Avalon will be written in blood. This is written and drawn by Gabriel. Laverne Kinzerski is the colorist, I believe. I gave it 3 out of 5, ages 16 and up. partly because I'm buying it mostly for the art. The art's really nice. I'm going to show you that in a little bit. But storyline wise, it's just, well, we kind of been there, done that, seen that type stuff. And you'll see what I mean in just a minute. If I haven't already hinted at that with the power sword. But anyway, here we go. This is her coming across a group of people that she had already tied up and left on the X's as punishment for what they had done. And she hadn't meant to leave them there, and they got burnt by other parties to crisp and left for rotting corpses. And she feels guilty for what she has done. In the second page in the middle, the very middle panel, there she is riding a purple saber-toothed tiger with her power sword. It's She-Ra with Battle Cat. It's a common theme, I guess. But yeah, it's that kind of medieval science fiction battle stuff going on there. And it's kind of across, has a very Mobius, Jean Giraud, Mobius, Arzak comics. I don't know if you're familiar with the Arzak comics from Mobius, but it very much in that same vein of work. And I like that. I love the artwork by Gabriel here, but story-wise, it's just kind of middle of the road generic stuff. So I gave it a 3 out of 5. And that is all of our reviews for today. But I also wanted to talk about previews. And if you don't know what previews is the monthly catalog that is shipped to retailers. It tells you about all the different publishers and what their releases are going to be 2 to 3 months in advance, and you're supposed to do your pre-orders through it. People are always asking me, how do I pick the books? That I cover. Well, what I do is I buy a copy of this catalog and I go through them. And I also go through the ones from DC and Marvel that come with it as well. Usually Marvel doesn't have anything. They don't this month either. And that's not so much a saying against Marvel as my own personal tastes and what I want to read. If they put the right creators on the right books, things would change. They don't. I don't know what you want me to say. I can't, if they don't put the creative teams I want to see on the right books, I can't buy them. They don't exist, DC, this month's catalog, I got Strange Adventures #2. Primer, which is a one-shot graphic novel about a girl whose mother creates paints that gives you superpowers, and she paints herself, and then she has superpowers and goes out on adventures. And that just sounded really cool to me. It's an all-ages book, and that'll be coming out in June of 2020 for $10. And I'll put more information on that in a future, probably next week, so that you guys can pre-order it if you want. I'll give a little more background on this particular book next week. So if you're interested, you can pre-order. I'm not getting this book, but I noticed this, and it's Wonder Woman, Tempest Tossed. And the reason I noticed it is I was reading it, and it's basically the same story as the Wonder Woman Warbringer book that I just reviewed. Both are a teenage Diana trying to be accepted by the Amazons. People are in an accident offshore. She brings the people onto the island, and now there's problems, and she has to resolve it. And I've been there, done that. What is this? You just told this story. So I'm a little bit I'm a little bit disappointed in DC for that, but it is what it is. Gonna get Amethyst number 3 by Amy Reeder. And as I go through this quickly, it's not that it's not that any of these books are bad. It's just not what I'm looking for. Yeah, I know there's more in here. I've already talked about the question. Deaths of Vic Sage. This will be the 3rd issue, and I'll be getting that. I'm going to get the whole series. I guess there's like 4 issues, and this will be the 3rd out of 4, so I'll get that. Far Sector number 6, which we've talked about in the past. I'll be getting that. I'll be getting that whole series, all 12 issues. That's issue number 6. Let's see. From the Joe Hill line, horror comics, I'll be getting The Plunge number 3. And that's, about that. And then House of Whispers number 20, which we've already talked about House of Whispers in the trades earlier this episode. I will probably be stopping this around issue 24, 25 if they don't cancel the series itself. Yeah, I think 2 years is enough for that particular series for me. Not that it's bad. It's just that, I kind of get my fill of a book, and I once I get bored with the book, I leave. It's not necessarily a reflection on the creative team. And I think that's all from DC in this particular issue. But like I said, I go through the big book, the thick book, and I'm not going to do like I did on the first review because we're almost 2 hours already. But I go through Image, through things, and there's a few things here like I'm going to get Adventure Man because of the art team, Rachel and Terry Dotson. I like them when they're not doing Marvel or DC stuff. So if they're doing something that's potentially an interesting story, I'll get it. And this looks like it could be interesting. And it's a 64-page book for $3.99, which is triple the size of a normal comic for the same price as a normal comic. Can't complain there. We'll give it a shot. And, decent artwork. So, I can't argue that one. Give it a shot. The worst that can happen is I don't like it. It's not the end of the world. There's a few other books here from Image, and again through Dark Horse, there's a few others, but I don't really want to go through all of them right now. What I will do, since this is the second run and it's almost 2:00 in the morning, I will revisit the previews next week, and with the rest of our reviews, and we'll talk about what I picked out of this catalog and why. Okay? And so for now, I think what we will do is if you have to visit me or want to talk to me somewhere or email me, you can reach me on Facebook at lewis.brightraven, deviantart.com/brightraven, here at YouTube at Quoth the Raven, Lewis Brightraven. Gmail is the best way to reach me via email at quoththeravenlbr72@gmail.com, or if you must, Yahoo at lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. Normally, the show podcast is on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. This week it's airing a little bit. It aired at 9, but I'm re-airing because there was a mistake with the video, and I don't know why. I want to thank our viewers for both episodes, both airings for both episodes, I should say. And I will definitely let you guys know what's going on. Next week, again, we'll revisit the previews catalog because I'm too tired to go through it again. And we'll talk about some books I got this week and some other stuff. And hopefully we'll get some guests on the show as well. Okay? So until then, we'll see you. And but before we leave, one last note to remind everyone, this episode of Quoth the Raven is intended for ages 16 and up. Even though some of our content that I feature is kid-friendly, the context of the episode is to address adults. And there's always the possibility of adult language present on the episode as well. It is rated TV 16 and up. And so, without further ado,